You're part of this family, Michael. It's your duty to help us. That was the moment everything shattered. I had just discovered that my father had taken out a $20,000 loan in my name without my consent. And worse, he had no intention of paying it back. I refused to stand by and let it happen. My name is Michael Carter, and I'm 28 years old. I've worked tirelessly to build a life of my own, one free from financial instability, free from the weight of my family's poor decisions. After graduating with a degree in business administration, I saved every penny, climbed my way up, and secured a stable job at a consulting firm in New York City. I wasn't rich, but I had security, or at least, I thought I did. Until the call from the bank. Mr. Carter, we need to discuss the loan you recently applied for. I frowned, gripping my phone tighter. Loan? I haven't applied for any loan. A brief silence. Then, the woman on the other end hesitated before continuing. We're referring to the $20,000 loan approved 2 months ago. No payments have been made, and we wanted to check if there was an issue. A chill ran down my spine. There must be a mistake, I said, my voice tense. I never applied for any loan. The loan is under your name, Mr. Carter. The funds were transferred to an account linked to your last name. My stomach twisted. An account linked to my last name? I asked for details, and the second I heard them, I felt the air leave my lungs. The account belonged to my father. I hung up abruptly and called my mother. She answered with her usual warmth. Michael, sweetheart, I was just about to call you. Mom, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Explain to me why there's a $20,000 loan in my name that was transferred to Dad's account. The pause that followed was all the confirmation I needed. Mike, son, we needed it. I felt my blood boil. Needed it? Don't overreact. My father cut in, his tone dismissive. We took care of you your whole life. We gave you everything. And now we're just asking for a little help. Help? This wasn't help. This was theft. We only did it because we knew you could handle it. My mother pleaded. You have a good job. You're doing well. Besides, we used it to pay off your Uncle David's debt and help your sister. My grip tightened on the phone. You mean to tell me you stole from me to pay off someone else's debt? Michael, don't be selfish, my father said coolly. We're family. You have stability. It's not like this is going to ruin you. I clenched my jaw. My pulse thundered in my ears. I'm going to fix this, and trust me, you won't get away with it. I hung up before they could spew more justifications. As my hands trembled, I reviewed the bank documents they sent me. The loan details were perfectly in order, my name, my account, my mother's signature. Then it hit me. It was a rainy night in New York City. My father had suffered a heart attack, and the hospital demanded $20,000 upfront for his surgery. I'd been desperate. Michael, please, it's Dad. We don't have the money right now. I had rushed to the bank, only to be denied. I can apply, my mother had offered, but I need you to sign an authorization. It's just a piece of paper, sweetheart, just in case. I had signed without hesitation. Dad survived, and I forgot all about that signature. That one signature gave my mother the ability to take out the loan, without me ever knowing. It was legal. And at the same time, it was a knife in my back. A message popped up on my phone. Mike, sweetheart, please don't overreact. This was all for the family. Come home, and we'll talk. I grabbed my jacket and keys. No. They weren't going to talk their way out of this. I drove through the city, barely registering the lights, the streets, the world outside my own rage. By the time I pulled up to my parents' house, I forced myself to take a deep breath. I couldn't storm in screaming. Not yet. I rang the doorbell. My mother opened it with a nervous smile. Michael, son, I'm so glad you came. I walked past her without a word, straight into the living room. My father sat in his favorite chair, the remote in hand, barely looking up. I told you not to overreact, he muttered. This is just a misunderstanding. I let out a hollow laugh. A misunderstanding? Taking out a loan in my name? Without my consent? That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a declaration of war. I crossed my arms. I'm not sitting down until you explain why you did this. My mother sighed, casting a quick glance at my father, as if waiting for him to take the lead, but he just shrugged. Listen, Michael. She started, her voice dripping with forced sweetness, the same tone she always used when trying to manipulate me. You have a good job. Stability, we just needed a little help. Help? I spat, the word tasting like poison. $20,000 isn't a little help. We were going to pay it back, my father muttered, eyes still glued to the television. But then things got complicated. I let out a hollow laugh. Complicated? Because you never planned on telling me? My mother shifted uncomfortably. We knew you'd get upset. And you still did it anyway? Why? She hesitated, then lowered her gaze. It was for your sister. A knot tightened in my stomach. Jessica? She nodded. She's been going through a tough time. Michael. She lost her job. She's drowning in debt. She needed help. Rage simmered beneath my skin. So you decided I should pay for her mistakes? My father finally spoke, his voice as indifferent as ever. Family helps each other. I closed my eyes for a moment, forcing myself to breathe. Where is she? More hesitation. She's not here. My heart pounded. Where is she? Silence. Then, I knew. She's on vacation, isn't she? Neither of them answered. They didn't have to. A bitter laugh escaped me. I can't believe this. My mother rushed to justify herself. Son, she was really stressed. She needed a break. A break? My voice cracked with fury. I'm the one paying off this loan, and she's the one who needed a break. My father finally looked at me, irritation flashing in his eyes. That's enough, Michael. It's just money. I stepped closer. No, Dad, it's my money, my name, my future. You're acting like you're broke. He scoffed. Paying this off won't kill you. I'm not paying a single dollar. Well, we'll see how you handle it then. He shot back. Because the bank is coming after you. That's exactly what we're going to discuss now, I said, pulling out a set of documents from my jacket. I have options, and you're not going to like any of them. My mother's eyes widened in fear. Mike, please. No, Mom, this is over. A heavy silence stretched between us. My mother's watery eyes pleaded with me to soften. My father, arms crossed, looked like he was already done with the conversation. Michael, please, she whispered. This is something we can fix together. I clenched my teeth and slammed the papers onto the table with a sharp thud. There's nothing to fix, Mom. I just want to understand, at what point did you think this was okay? My father scoffed. Stop being dramatic. It's just a loan, not the end of the world. Not for you. Of course, you don't have to pay it back. It was for your sister. My mother insisted, as if repeating it would somehow make it right. We knew you'd be upset, but Mike, you have money, we don't. So you decided to take it without asking? Don't see it that way, she protested. It was just a favor. I shook my head, my voice ice cold. A favor is something you ask for, not something you steal. She looked down, but my father didn't waver. Look, kid, I don't feel guilty about this. We did what had to be done. No, I slammed my palm onto the table. What you did was selfish and dishonest. My mother sobbed, but my father barely flinched. And what are you going to do? He asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. I was silent for a moment. Then, with terrifying calm, I said, if I have to, I will. My mother's face crumpled in horror. Don't talk like that, please. We're your family, she cried. I let out a cold laugh. A real family wouldn't do this. My father leaned forward. Think carefully before you act. This could have consequences. I tilted my head. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you to think before you act, he said, voice low. He wasn't used to being questioned. He had always been the one with the last word. But not this time. If you think I'm carrying this loan, you're mistaken, I said. I'm going to the bank. They're not canceling it. My father shot back. It's in your name. You signed the authorization. It's legal. I know, I said, a quiet fury behind my words. But that doesn't mean I can't do something about it. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer. Michael, what's going on? I need to see you. Urgent. My mother looked at me in panic. You can't do this, Michael. I ignored her. Tomorrow morning. Your office? Understood. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my pocket. I'm going to fix this. My mother sobbed. Why are you doing this to us? She's your sister. No, Mom. I turned toward the door. You did this to me. Her voice cracked. Mike, please. I hesitated for half a second. Then, without another word, I walked out and shut the door behind me. Hours later, I sat in my apartment, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring into the empty space. My phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from my mother. I ignored every one of them. Then, a message from Jessica. Mike, Mom told me what happened. I didn't want it to be like this. I'm sorry. The rage burned hotter. You knew they used my money, and you didn't say anything? 3 dots appeared. She was typing. Then, nothing. My grip tightened around the glass. The phone rang again. This time, it wasn't my mother or Jessica. Josh, my best friend. I hesitated before answering. What's up, man? What happened? Your mom called me, crying. I closed my eyes, exhausted. The usual. My family making decisions for me like I don't matter. What did they do now? I exhaled sharply. They took out a loan in my name, $20,000, so Jessica could go on a luxury vacation. Josh let out a low whistle. Are you serious? Completely. A long pause. What are you going to do? I swirled the whiskey in my glass, watching the liquid catch the light. Family, I murmured bitterly. A real family wouldn't do this. I supposedly signed? The bank manager hesitated, his confidence wavering under my glare. With a curt nod, he signaled to his assistant, who quickly retrieved the loan documents. I snatched the folder, flipping through the pages with tense fingers. My signature was there, perfectly forged, but then something caught my eye. This email address isn't mine. I pointed at the contact information field. The manager squinted at the form. That's the registered email for all loan notifications. My stomach tightened. The email had my mother's last name. They had changed my contact details to ensure I never received a single alert. I leaned in, voice cold. This is a direct breach of contract. You issued a loan without confirming the applicant's identity. If this reaches the media, your bank is in serious trouble. The manager swallowed hard. I'll escalate this to our legal department, but I can't promise. Do it. I cut him off with a tight smile. My lawyer is already preparing a lawsuit. Without another word, I turned and walked out. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house. My mother greeted me at the door, her face pale. Michael, please, we need to talk. I already spoke with the bank, I said flatly. They confirmed you changed my email on the application. She visibly blanched. Son, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I stepped past her, voice unwavering. You stole from me. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time, I felt nothing. My father emerged from the living room, frowning. Are we still on this? I tossed the folder onto the coffee table. Yes, and this time, I have proof. His jaw tightened as he snatched the papers. And what exactly do you plan to do? I already took action. If the bank doesn't cancel the loan, I'll sue you. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. Michael, we're your family. You stopped being my family when you decided to ruin my life. At that moment, Jessica walked in, sunglasses still perched on her head, a tan that screamed luxury vacation. What's going on? Her gaze flitted to the documents, then to our parents' stricken faces. Understanding dawned. Mike, you knew, I said, voice sharp. You knew what they did, and you let it happen. She looked down. I didn't think it was that serious. Of course you didn't. I laughed bitterly, because you weren't the one stuck with the bill. My father glared. If you do this, you'll end up alone. I stepped toward the door. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by liars. I walked out, their shouts and sobs chasing after me, but I didn't care. The first battle was won. 48 hours later. An urgent email from the bank's legal department landed in my inbox. I had expected this. With steady hands, I fastened the button on my jacket and left for the meeting that would change everything. The manager's office was sterile and professional. A gray-haired man with thin glasses extended his hand cautiously. Mr. Carter, we've reviewed your case. I crossed my arms, and he adjusted his glasses, flipping through the file. Due to irregularities in the loan approval process, altered contact details, lack of verbal confirmation, the bank has decided to nullify the debt and cancel the loan. My chest tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. And those responsible? The manager closed the folder. Since the funds were deposited into your father's account, he is now solely responsible for repayment. I barely suppressed a laugh. Perfect. He hesitated. Our legal team will be reaching out to your family regarding the matter. I stood, shaking his hand. I appreciate your cooperation. Leaving the bank, adrenaline thrummed through my veins. Time for the final strike. The Last Supper. I didn't go to my parents' house. Instead, I summoned them to a high-end restaurant, one I knew would make them uncomfortable. I made them wait half an hour before finally arriving, savoring the unease on their faces. My father scowled. My mother looked like she had aged 10 years. Jessica fidgeted with her napkin, unable to meet my gaze. I sat down, placed my phone on the table, and let the silence stretch. Why did you bring us here? My father snapped. I tilted my head, enjoying the moment. To see your faces when I tell you the bank canceled the loan. And now, Dad, you're the only one responsible for paying the $20,000. The color drained from his face. What did you just say? I took a slow sip of water. You heard me. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Jessica let out a shaky breath. Mike, please, no. My father slammed his fist on the table. You're ruining us. I smirked. No, you ruined yourselves. A suffocating silence settled over the table. We can't pay that, my mother whispered. We're pensioners. I leaned back. Sell the car, the house, or ask Jessica for help. But don't ask me for anything. Jessica squirmed. I don't have that kind of money. I met her gaze. But you had enough for a 5-star vacation, didn't you? She said nothing. Michael, please, my mother whimpered. I raised a hand. No more excuses. No more manipulation. You wanted a lesson? Here it is. Actions have consequences. My father stood abruptly. You're selfish. I met his glare. And you're a thief. For the first time, he looked away. I stood, picked up my phone, and strolled toward the exit. Before leaving, I delivered the final blow. Good luck paying off that debt. And just like that, I walked out of their lives. 1 year later. A message from Jessica. Mike, Mom isn't doing well. She's depressed. Dad had to sell the car, and they barely leave the house. This debt destroyed all of us. Please, tell me we're still family. I let the message sit unanswered. Pouring myself a glass of wine, I stepped onto the terrace of my new Los Angeles apartment. Tomorrow, I had a flight to Japan. Life moved on. My family didn't. Final update, answering Reddit comments. How could you not help your parents? They gave you food and shelter. If they had asked, I might have considered it, but they didn't. They stole. But you signed the authorization. It's your fault. Yes, I trusted them. That was my mistake. If your sister was struggling, why didn't she pay for her own vacation? Because she had no money. She was used to being taken care of. And when she wasn't, she decided she deserved a break at my expense. Don't you think you were too harsh? No, they never apologized. They called me selfish. Family helps each other? No, they used me. So I taught them a lesson. You take from me, you pay the price. What do you think, Reddit? Did I do the right thing? Or should I have given in?